We know Eve, we know her story, and we know for the most part that her story ends when she eats from the forbidden fruit. That's when we stop telling her story. She messed it up for us all. If you're like me, you grew up in church saying like, yo, when I get to heaven, I'm gonna let Eve have it because she had one job. She failed at that one job, and I am going to let her, listen, okay, let me stay focused.
Stay focused.
I had to forgive Eve. Here I am empowering women to look beyond their mistakes, to look beyond their faults, and yet I have this thing in my heart about this woman I've never even met, just heard about in the Bible. I went back, I look at her story, and I realized that people allow her story to end when she eats from the fruit, but that's not where her story ends. It evolves after that. She evolves after that. There's restoration, there's breakthrough, there's redemption, and yet we don't tell that part of the story. And then I wondered how many of us can relate to Eve. We knew better but didn't do better, and we allowed our story to stop at that point. And then most importantly, what would redemption and breakthrough look like for us if we embarked on the same journey that Eve did?
Man, you know what? It's funny ladies say that. I want to have a conversation with Adam. Let's talk, bruh, for real, because, let's stay on the course. We were talking about woman evolve, because Adam, I'm coming to talk to you when I get to heaven. I'm going to talk to Jesus, then I'm going to talk to you, bruh. So you said something in a book, Sarah, and I really want you to break this down because this shook me personally, even as a man. You have a statement you said, and I love it. If we can get to the root, we can change the fruit. And I was like, so if we can't get to the root, then we'll never get to the fruit. So break that down for us. What do you mean by that, Sarah?
So I share a lot about my story. Okay, I was a teen mom. I got pregnant at 13. I had my son at 14 years old. And for a very long time, I penalized myself for that fruit. I never took time to consider how did I even end up in a situation where I was that exposed, where I was that vulnerable, where I was that desperate. That is the root. The pregnancy was just the fruit. And because I never addressed the root, I spent 10 years repeating different levels of toxic cycles because I never addressed the root. Going to the root, which we just work through in the book, we get down to what is the root of my dysfunction? What is the root of my fear? What is the root of my insecurity? For me, that root was the need to be accepted, the need to figure out where I fit in. And that allowed me to end up in totally different circles throughout my life, just trying to answer that question. And when I acknowledged that that is what it was, I was able to create barriers and defenses for myself. A lot of times we talk about boundaries for other people, but the truth is sometimes we need boundaries for ourselves, which I know you can relate to when you talk about financial literacy and stability in general. It's about creating boundaries for ourselves. And so those emotional, spiritual boundaries change our fruit.
Yeah. No, that's so... and Sarah, that's one thing I love about you. You're probably one of the realest people I know. I mean, just to hear your story, to see where you come from, I'm curious because I think let's just be real, we all have some stuff in the past that we need to evolve from, that we need to learn from, that we need to get over. Heck, you said you're a teenage mother. By the grace of God, I'm not a teenage father. I'm practicing what I'm practicing now, but I have a past as well. How do we learn from our past? How do we learn how to evolve from the mistakes that we've done so we can grow and experience everything God has for us?
The key to what you said there is how do we evolve? What I spent a long time trying to do was disconnect from what I did.
Wow.
I wanted to bury it. I never wanted to see it again. I wanted to disconnect. And I actually think God's graciousness allowed for it to be a child, right? Because if you were experiencing other issues, other circumstances, you could probably draw a line in the sand and never think about it again. But I was there with the evidence of this fruit every single day. And because of that evidence, I learned that we don't disconnect. We don't divide ourselves. What we do instead is we embrace ourselves. We embrace every part of our life, and we find the wisdom connected to those wounds. We find empathy and self-forgiveness for ourselves. We receive the truth, a higher truth for ourselves, and then we evolve armed with that truth, not with shame, not with guilt, not with disappointment, but armed with the truth of who I am today could not even be possible if it wasn't for what I went through then.
You talk about break up with your fears. How do fears actually hold us back from experiencing all that life has for us?
Fears are so sneaky because they pretend to keep us safe. Fears say, don't do that because you could get hurt. Don't do that because you could fail. Don't do that because it may not work out. And it sounds so logical and sensical that we begin to trust our fears. And because they pretend to keep us safe, it's difficult for us to break up with them. But there is this longing down on the inside of us that says, I wonder who I could be if. I wonder what would happen if. And that longing does not go away. And so how do I align that longing with my being and my presence? And so one, I think we start to direct our faith in the direction of our fears. Well, if it does fail, God will give me wisdom and faith so that I never have to experience that again. If it does fail, then at least I won't live haunted and taunted by the idea of what if. Faith and fears must walk together, right?
Come
We
on.
don't ever totally avoid our fears, but your faith ought to be talking back to your fears. Your fears cannot have the microphone alone. Listen, this is going to be a duet if it is nothing else. My fear may be singing, but my faith is going to be rapping on this bridge, okay? Because we going to be in this thing together.
That's right, Sarah. Oh, the preacher Sarah about to come out, y'all. Y'all better watch out. She trying to hold herself in, y'all, but she coming in.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
So I got to ask this question. I totally believe in goals. But from your opinion, why are setting goals important for success?
Goals are important, but not just like short-term goals, generational goals. We talk about our ability to be here in the earth, not just for ourselves, but for the generations connected to us. And so I challenge people to if your short-term goal is to lose 10 pounds, then a generational goal is to create a healthy lifestyle so that someone isn't in this position again. How do I connect my short-term goals with my generational goals? And I have tools and practices that help you to connect those dots, but short-term, long-term, generational. Because at the end of the day, we're here to push the ball forward, okay? I'm not just here to make my name great. I'm trying to push something forward so that my family doesn't end up in this same cycle over and over again. We talk about God breaking generational curses. How does God break generational curses? He uses people who have decided that it has to end with me. And if it's going to end with you, then your goal has to be bigger than just you. And so zooming out of the picture is one of the keys and reasons why I believe that goals are so important for our purpose in life.
You know what, Sarah? You said something that is so interesting.
Okay.
I heard you say something about, think about future generations. And it's I know the guys listening right now, I'm there thinking well, that sounds like legacy. Well, isn't that the man's responsibility to worry about legacy? And the wife comes on and they work together. But I hear you saying hey, no, start thinking future generations, your last name. And then the man is over here saying, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. They could still do that together. Now, are you saying that a woman should have her own generational legacy stuff down the road and don't really worry about the man right now? Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying. In Genesis 1, I know. Look at your face. Look at your face. This is Woman Evolve takeover at this table. Look at your whole face. Okay, but let me finish. In Genesis 1, God doesn't say to the man, be fruitful and multiply. He says to them. God blesses them. He says, be fruitful and multiply to them. He says to have dominion to them. To them, them. And so, yes, a woman should have her own generational goals, and God will bring someone in her life, if that is a part of his plan for her life and that is a part of her plan for her life, that will accompany those generational goals. My husband had goals when he met me.
Yeah.
I had goals when I met my husband, and now we work in tandem to make those goals a reality. But to be fruitful and multiply is not just to have filling the earth with babies. It's filling the earth with the essence of you. Your business is being fruitful and multiplying. Your organization is fruitful and multiply. The nonprofit, the ministry, the books, the social media platform is fruitful and multiply. And we don't have to wait for a man to come along to multiply. It's beautiful when they come, when it's a God-designed man. But if it is not, that does not mean that you cannot multiply where you are with what you have now.
Yo, Sam, I'll give you that one. I'll give it to you. You know, I really will.